Wait, you guys, Brooke actually got engaged. There have been rumors of this going around ever since she took a class at the Aloe gym, and everyone was like, wait, what is that ring on your finger, Brooke? Are you engaged? Address the ring on your finger.
You guys, there is still so much being said about the canceled girls, Tana and Brooke, with people speculating on whether or not they hate each other behind the scenes. Brianna Chickenfry is weighing in. Brooke is clapping back. There's also some other things going on with Brooke, and we are going to get into all of it that is being said. Before we spill the tea, let's talk about what to do when life spills you.
Brooke Schofield is engaged, and when I tell you the amount of people who are congratulating her on this specific engagement to this specific man is absolutely shocking to me. Did we forget who her man is?
Over the last couple weeks, there's been so much said about Brooke and Tana and the future of the canceled podcast. After the girls scared some people into thinking the podcast was ending abruptly, Tana clarified that they would be posting through the end of the year until their contract is up.
And some people were saying that on the canceled podcast, she was wearing a ring to like manifest an engagement. So I was like, okay, is it not true that she got engaged? I didn't want to say, because no one seemed to know if it actually was real or not.
She said they might come back to do canceled, but for now, this is where their heads are at because they've just grown out of this podcast and have very different visions for content that they want to make in the future. In the last video I made talking about this, I talked about how people have tried to boil this all down to Tana and Brooke simply not getting along or liking each other anymore as the reason why they're not doing the podcast.
Then some people were saying that on the canceled podcast, she was wearing a ring to manifest an engagement. So I was like, okay, is it not true that she got engaged? I didn't want to say
why they're not doing the podcast. Tana did try to combat these claims saying, I love Brooke, don't twist that. Just eventually there will be a new era, people grow and we need to. But of course, not everyone believes them when they say they're all good and feel like once the podcast ends, they won't be hanging out with each other.
Her man, there were underage girls who came out and exposed the fact that Miles, Brooke Schofield's fiance, was talking to them and allegedly dating them.
Bri and Josh Richards talked about the canceled podcast during BFFs the other day, and Brianna said that she felt like Tana and Brooke hated each other based on what she's seen.
I guess Brooke was saying she got thousands of hate comments, they would get thousands of hate comments from doing the podcast. So it was a hard thing to continue to do.
That's literally why we ended Plan Bray.
no one seemed to know if it actually was real or not. And I do feel like some people wear rings on that finger casually sometimes, and it literally means nothing. But she's been on vacation with her boyfriend Miles, and now he is her fiance.
Welcome back, you guys. And today we seriously need to talk about Brooke Schofield right now because she just confirmed her engagement, and instead of people celebrating her big moment, the internet is tearing her apart, absolutely dragging her on every platform. And it's not just trolls in the comments, we're talking Reddit threads, TikToks, and even other influencers chiming in about her character, her relationship, and yeah, even her past. This entire situation has spiraled so quickly that now people are questioning whether Brooke can even recover her public image. And honestly, what's wild is how she's responding. She's not backing down. She's clapping back harder than ever and throwing major shade in return. But the backlash didn't start with the engagement post. Nope. This all traces back to the canceled podcast with Tana Mongeau and the rumors that have been brewing for weeks. People have been speculating whether Brooke and Tana secretly hate each other, and even though they've both publicly said they're still good, fans aren't buying it. And things got even messier when Brianna Chickenfry literally said out loud that it looks like they hate each other. And that right there kind of cracked this thing wide open. Then, just as Brooke started getting heat for the podcast ending, her engagement went live. And instead of congratulations, she got hit with waves of hate comments, people bringing up her past controversies, dragging her fiancé, and saying straight up that she doesn't deserve the platform she has.
In the last video I made talking about this, I talked about how people have tried to boil this all down to Tana and Brooke simply not getting along or liking each other anymore as the reason why they're not doing the podcast. Tana did try to combat these claims saying, I love Brooke, don't twist that. Just eventually there will be a new era, people grow and we need to.
And now Brooke is firing back on TikTok, on Instagram, in podcast replies, basically everywhere, and she's doing it in full savage mode. So how did we even get here? How did a podcast ending turn into a full-blown character takedown? And what's really going on behind all this drama that people aren't seeing? Yeah, we're going to break it all down. From the podcast fallout to the engagement backlash to Brooke's past tweets making headlines again. Because this isn't just influencer gossip anymore. This is a full-on digital war. And Brooke is right in the middle of it. So let's go back to where this all really started blowing up. The canceled podcast. Now, if you've been following Brooke and Tana for a while, you know this podcast used to be one of the most unfiltered, chaotic, and kinda iconic shows out there. Fans loved it for the wild stories, the random deep dives, and yeah, the unpredictable chemistry between the two. But recently, things took a turn. Tana suddenly announced that the podcast would be ending at the end of the year when their contract wraps. And while she tried to soften the blow by saying, "We've just grown and want different things creatively," the internet wasn't buying that explanation.
She posted this picture of the ring, and I must say, it's a really nice ring. And she shared a couple photos of them and called it their engagement moon. So obviously, we have it confirmed now.
Almost immediately, people started speculating that there was real tension behind the scenes. Like, not just a creative shift, more like actual bad blood. And then Brianna Chickenfry pretty much said the quiet part out loud during a BFF's podcast episode. She flat out said she thinks Brooke and Tana hate each other. Like, her exact words were, "They don't even seem like they like each other on the podcast." And honestly, that moment hit hard because she wasn't just giving a hot take. She was saying what a lot of fans had already started picking up on. Brooke actually clapped back at that quote online, saying, "Different opinions can't loathe each other entirely. Noted." Which honestly felt more like a dig than a denial. But the thing is, once people got that idea in their heads, everything the girls said started being picked apart. Every clip, every reaction, every side-eye, it all became part of this narrative that the friendship was fake or falling apart behind the scenes. And then the hate comments really started to ramp up, especially toward Brooke. Some fans said she seemed cold or uninterested during episodes. Others accused her of always trying to outshine Tana. People were literally analyzing their energy on the couch like it was a breakup reality show. And it's honestly wild because just a few months ago, everyone was calling them the perfect duo. But now, instead of being seen as part of this power team, Brooke is getting painted as the villain of the whole situation. And the podcast ending, it didn't give her a break. It just gave the internet a green light to go even harder on her.
Isn't without its drama though, because obviously people are bringing up things in the comments about Miles, which isn't anything new, and probably the reason why she waited a little bit to tell everyone.
But what happened next took everything to a completely different level. So after the podcast drama started heating up, things got way more personal, especially for Brooke. Like, we're talking full-blown comment section warfare. Instead of just questioning the podcast ending or throwing light shade, people on TikTok and Reddit basically declared open season on Brooke. And the criticism wasn't subtle either. Fans were calling her inauthentic, self-absorbed, and straight up saying she was the reason Cancelled went downhill. One comment that really picked up steam accused Brooke of always trying to one-up Tana whenever she told a story on the podcast. Like, people were saying she couldn't just listen and react. She had to spin it into her own moment. And others started posting side-by-side clips trying to prove that Brooke's vibe had shifted completely over the last few months. They said she was checked out, more about herself, and basically just using the podcast for exposure. And it didn't stop there. Some fans straight up begged for her to be removed from the show. Like, someone literally commented, "Can we please get her off the podcast? I hate her so much." And while that's obviously harsh, what made it worse was how many people were liking and agreeing with it. Brooke, to her credit, didn't just sit back and take it. She's been responding to comments, clapping back on TikTok, and even poking fun at the whole situation.
Maybe, just maybe, I don't know, maybe she's used to the hate and what everyone has to say about him in like allegations and things. But for anyone that was wondering if the engagement was real or not, it is real.
One user tried to call her out for flexing her wealth on vacation and pretending to be unbothered. And Brooke straight up replied saying, "First of all, I'm completely bothered. This video is about flexing my wealth." And like, say what you will. But that's kind of iconic. But even that sass didn't slow the hate. One of the most viral comments came after she posted about needing a break, saying the negativity was getting to her. Someone responded, "Are you off the podcast yet? Can we just have Tana and Paige?" And that's when it really hit. People weren't just trolling, they were trying to rewrite the narrative completely, making Brooke the unnecessary side character in her own story. And if all of that wasn't enough, things got even messier once Brooke dropped the engagement post, because that's when people really lost it. And what they started saying about her fiancé? Yeah, that opened a whole new chapter of drama. So when Brooke announced her engagement, it should have been this super happy moment, right? Like she posted these cute photos from what she called her engagement moon, showed off the ring, and dropped the news with her fiancé Miles. And at first glance, it was giving soft launch turned hard launch energy. But instead of people hyping her up or saying congratulations, the internet pretty much turned it into a full-on investigation. Like almost immediately, Reddit went digging. People were pulling up receipts, resurfacing old claims, and straight up questioning who this guy even was. And the issue? Some users said Miles had allegedly dated someone much younger in the past.
Now, we can say alleged because there are photos of these young girls with Miles, and there are photo proofs of Miles liking and commenting suggestive messages onto these girls' profile.
Now, there's been no official proof or confirmation of anything, but that didn't stop the rumors from spiraling. Reddit threads started blowing up, with people basically saying, "Why are we celebrating this when the guy's past is sketchy?" And Brooke? She didn't ignore it. She fired back in the comments saying, "Mind you, there is not a single human person to validate that claim." Like, she's made it very clear she believes these rumors are completely false and that she's not going to let them ruin her relationship. And honestly, whether you believe her or not, the timing of all this couldn't have been worse. Because instead of enjoying her engagement, she's out here battling internet detectives and anonymous accusations. And some of the comments on her engagement post were just brutal. One person wrote, "The ring doesn't remove the allegations, dear." And another said, "This is why people don't take her seriously." Like there was very little space for celebration. It was just drama layered on top of more drama. And again, people weren't just going after Miles, they were still coming for Brooke, accusing her of manifesting the engagement for clout. Others said she was rushing into the relationship just to prove a point. And all of that fed this narrative that Brooke's whole public image was built on smoke and mirrors, that everything she posts is fake or self-serving. So yeah, what should have been this once-in-a-lifetime milestone instantly got clouded by rumors, negativity, and yet another round of clapbacks. But just when people thought the engagement drama was messy, something even older came back to haunt her. And it hit way harder than any Reddit thread. So, just when Brooke was dealing with all the podcast speculation, the hate comments, and the engagement fallout, things went from bad to worse, because an old controversy came back and grabbed everyone's attention again. We're talking about those resurfaced tweets that people labeled as racist, and even though this isn't brand new, the way it got brought back into the spotlight recently made everything 10 times messier.
These girls were not even 18 when he was liking and commenting stuff on their profiles. This is hard for me to make because Brooke Schofield has shown me love in the past on my other content that I've made about her, and I don't want to say this, but why are we congratulating her on her engagement to someone with that kind of dating history?
Brooke actually sat down with Isaac Rell on his podcast and finally addressed the tweets directly. Like, head on, no avoiding. And what's wild is that even that became controversial. Some people were mad that Isaac even gave her a platform to speak, saying she didn't deserve the chance to explain herself. Others said it was long overdue and that owning up publicly was the right thing to do. Now, on the podcast, Brooke admitted that she was super nervous going in. She said she'd had really emotional reactions in the past and didn't feel like she handled things the best way when the tweets first came up. She also said something a lot of people found interesting, that she had already been ashamed of those tweets before they even went viral again. Like, in her words, "I knew those tweets existed. I was ashamed of them long before anyone brought them to my attention." She talked about how, at the time, she didn't fully understand what racism actually looked like. Not just hate, but the underlying messages and attitudes in certain things she said or believed. And she admitted there was a learning curve. She even said, "Nobody thinks they're racist, but I had to realize that some of the things I said were, even if I didn't feel hatred toward anyone." But even after that level of honesty, the internet didn't exactly offer her grace. Some people appreciated the apology and the fact that she was willing to sit down and speak openly, but others saw it as performative, like she was just trying to clean up her image because she was getting backlash from every angle. And honestly, it's tough to say how much that podcast helped or hurt, because while some viewers were like, finally, she's being real, others felt like she still didn't take full responsibility. And that's the thing about cancel culture.
I wish nothing but the best for her, but I don't agree with her being engaged to that man. I can't support that.
Once people see you in a certain light, it's really hard to shift the narrative. And the pressure, it kept building until Brooke hit her limit and said something that made fans seriously worry. So with everything already stacked against her, the podcast ending, the nonstop hate, the allegations about her fiancé, and the resurfaced tweets, Brooke finally reached what looked like a breaking point. And we're not just talking about subtle posts or vague Instagram captions. She literally took to TikTok and said something that had fans genuinely concerned. In one clip, she said, "I love my job more than anything, but I need to step away for a while because the hate is making me want to cancel my life subscription." Yeah, that line hit people hard, not just because it was dark, but because it didn't sound like a joke. And in that moment, you could feel how real everything had gotten for her. But instead of the internet easing up, some people actually doubled down. One comment asked, "Are you off the podcast yet? Can we have the rest of the season with just Tana and Paige?" Others were like, "Go do TikTok shop and spend your millions you made off Tana. Nobody even knew who you were without her." And what's wild is that these comments weren't being hidden or downvoted. They were getting likes, shares, and responses. Still, Brooke didn't disappear. She stayed online, stayed posting, and stayed clapping back. She replied to the whole unbothered accusation by literally saying, "First of all, I'm completely bothered. This video is about flexing my wealth." Like she's clearly leaning into the hate at this point. Whether it's a coping mechanism, a PR move, or just pure defiance, it's obvious she's not going down quietly.
It was just hate comments, and it was not fun anymore. And then you just like learn to hate it. And so I mean, I totally get that part where it's like it's not enjoyable anymore.
I think it just depends where you look. I mean, I don't know about them, but anytime I ever saw a clip about the canceled podcast, or it seemed like it was mostly love.
And that's what's made this whole situation so intense. Because Brooke isn't pulling the usual influencer move of going radio silent and letting the drama pass. Instead, she's choosing to respond to almost everything sarcastic TikToks, petty captions, even replying to Reddit posts. And depending on who you ask, it's either iconic or incredibly reckless. But regardless of how you see it, one thing is clear. The hate isn't just noise anymore. It's personal. And it's piling up in a way that's clearly affecting her mentally, emotionally, and professionally. But if you thought online comments were bad, wait until you hear what happened next on Jeff FM, because that episode turned the heat all the way up. Just when it felt like things couldn't get more brutal for Brooke, enter Jeff FM. Now, if you're not familiar, Jeff FM is Jeff Wittek's podcast, and it's known for being pretty unfiltered. But no one was expecting what went down in this particular episode, so they're casually talking about the canceled podcast ending, right? And the tone starts off chill. They're joking about how Tana will probably continue the show on her own, and everything seems light. But then, out of nowhere, one of Jeff's guests throws a jab that basically made everyone stop in their tracks. He said, completely casually, that Brooke was a racist and dating a file. Like, just dropped it into the convo like it was nothing. And here's the thing. They didn't really walk it back or clarify. Jeff kind of brushed it off, like, I'm just saying what the internet says, and the moment passed. But for viewers, it was a bombshell. People were shocked that something so serious got mentioned so lightly, especially on a platform with such a massive audience. And while Brooke hasn't directly responded to that episode, it definitely reignited a lot of the fire around her name. Clips from the podcast started going viral on TikTok and Reddit again, with people debating whether the comment was a joke, a mistake, or something more serious. For some fans, this crossed a line.
Well, I think they genuinely do hate each other. Like, they don't seem like they actually like each other outside of having... I mean, they don't even seem like they like each other on the podcast.
Damn. Okay, I don't really watch a lot of the podcasts. You know, I get a clip here and there.
I mean, I do only see clips, but it is them always disagreeing. Or it's like the Jortsgate was crazy, or it just seems like...
Yeah, I don't know about that. I've heard of it.
They felt like it was irresponsible to bring up accusations like that without any context, especially considering everything Brooke's already been dealing with. But for others, it just fueled the narrative they already believed, that Brooke's reputation isn't as squeaky clean as she wants it to be. What's wild is that this one offhanded comment seemed to have more impact than any of the TikToks or Reddit threads. It gave the drama a whole new level of visibility. And it hit at a time when Brooke was already in one of her most vulnerable public moments. And at this point, between the podcast ending, the engagement drama, the hate comments, the old tweets, and now the Jeff FM mess, people are seriously wondering, is Brooke spiraling, or is she about to come back harder than ever? Because whether you love her or not, one thing is clear. Brooke Schofield isn't fading quietly. And what she does next could change everything. So where does all of this leave Brooke Schofield? Well, she's still engaged, still posting, and still pushing through. But the internet hasn't exactly let up. If anything, things have only gotten more complicated. On one hand, she's putting out happy content, vacation pics, aesthetic stories, cozy moments with her fiancé Miles. But on the other hand, she's still being bombarded with criticism about everything from her past tweets to her relationship status. Like, her engagement announcement is still live, the photos are still up, and if you scroll through the comments, it's a mix of support and total chaos. People are either hyping her up like, good for you for not letting the hate win, or dragging her like, why are you pretending this is normal when you're literally trending for all the wrong reasons? But the bigger question now is, what's next? Because the podcast era is basically over. Her partnership with Tana, the thing that made her visible to most of the internet, is winding down. And that means Brooke has to figure out what her solo identity looks like. Is she going full lifestyle creator? Is she pivoting to brand deals and relationship content? Or is she going to use this moment to rebrand and finally address everything head on? Some fans think she's gearing up for a comeback, that the clapbacks, the podcast appearances, and the engagement push are all part of a bigger strategy to show she's unbothered and still in control. But others think she's walking a tightrope, that one more misstep, one more viral clip, one more questionable comment could take everything down for real this time. And honestly, whether you support her or not, there's no denying that Brooke Schofield is one of the most talked about influencers right now. The drama surrounding her hasn't died down. It's evolved. And if there's one thing the internet loves more than a scandal, it's watching to see whether someone sinks or survives it. Because in today's world, your image is everything. And Brooke's next move might just decide if she can hold on to hers. And with everything she's facing, the real question now is, will Brooke Schofield rise from the chaos or be remembered for the downfall?